Hey everybody, this is Dust for Dust on Gaming, doing a quick replay of 12 Bolt. This is the non-budget version that Saffron Olive used to go 5-0 in his 2-man queues and 3-2 in a competitive league. So how does this deck differ from traditional Burn? Obviously, first off, it's a budget list. You're playing mono reds, you don't have to worry about fetch lands or shock lands or any of those kind of expenses. That does give up some utility in terms of like some of the white spells like Lightning Helix, Boros Charm. Makes it more difficult to play cards like Searing Blaze, Searing Blood. So what's the main difference between this and traditional Burn? So this deck is a little bit more reliant on creatures to get across the finish line. In certain matchups, that's a boon. It allows you to kill your opponent faster. Allows you to develop a board presence. Really, your bolts, your wizards, lightnings, your gut shots, your faithless lootings, all triggering prowess on your guys. Get your creatures really big, so it's possible in certain situations where your opponent's not really interacting with your creatures. It's possible to get across the finish line and do a lot of damage with your creatures. The flip side is with traditional Burn, and the reason I've liked traditional Burn over things like Wild Nacatl Burn or Bomat Courier being in Burn, is the fact that the less creatures you play, the less vulnerable you are to creature removal spells. Decks like Mardu Pyromancer, decks like Jeskai, decks like any deck that's looking to interact with your creatures, play sweepers like Anger of the Gods, etc. Traditional Burn's a little less vulnerable to those effects because you don't have as many creatures, and the creatures you have all either have haste or some type of triggered ability to them, in case of Eidolon the Great Rebel, that make it more difficult for your opponent to deal with those creatures on a more profitable basis. These decks are this deck is all 1-drops, which is fine. I mean, you've got Swift Spear, Soul Scar Mage, Bomat Courier, Gitu Lava Runner, and Grim Lavamancer. I mean, those are all fine cards, but the problem with a lot of these cards, like Grim Lavamancer, Soul Scar Mage, is they don't have haste. And at least not initially. Like, Lava Runner can get haste, but usually that's like by turn 3, unless you have a gut shot. And Bomat Courier being a 1-1 is actually very relevant. There's a lot of random X1s in the format, like Elves or Mana Dorks or any type of 1-drop out of most decks that can shut down Bomat Courier if you can't immediately kill the blocker. So there's a lot of like inherent strengths to this deck, like the ability to cast Fiery Temper, Wizard's Lightning, and Lightning Bolt, basically all, for the most part, as 1-mana Lightning Bolts is fine. Flame of Keld can help you reload. Grim Lavamancer can help clear out creatures. Gut Shot, obviously very mana efficient in terms of what it's doing, because you don't have to pay any mana. And free spells are usually pretty good. Insult to Injury was not too impressed with the performance of the card so far. So I was doing that to explain, like, I played through 3 matches with it and just dropped from the league because it was absolutely, I don't know if maybe I'm misplaying it because I'm used to traditional Burn, but I was not very impressed with the list. I'm just going to throw that out here. I know people may just shut off the video now. That's fine. I played against Hardened Scales, played against traditional Jeskai Control, and then I played the actual factual 12-bolt mirror match, and the deck just felt underpowered, and it almost felt like it flooded out more than regular Burn, even though you have access to Faithless Looting. I don't know, there were some draws that the deck felt pretty good, but there was a lot to just, I don't like go wide creature decks in Modern right now in terms of like decks like this. Like decks like Goblins, decks like Elves are fine in the meta. They have ways to go over the top, ways to give all their things haste, and really slam in for big chunks of damage. This deck, I mean, it has its draws where you can go like 1-drop, 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 follow up with burn spells, and it's amazing. But you just tend to run out of gas, or you tend to get in situations where it's a lot easier for your opponent to stabilize because you have less burn spells. You only effectively have 12 burn spells in this deck, and most traditional burn lists are running upwards of 20 plus, sometimes even into the upper 20s. So I think the lower quality of creatures, the fact that there's more creatures, and the fact that this is a synergy-based deck, so there are certain times where your Fiery Tempers and your Wizard's Lightnings are stuck in hand as 3 mana damage spells. I'm not a big fan of the deck, but we'll get into the replays. You'll see why here in a bit, why I'm not a huge fan. Maybe it's just the small sample size, but definitely, like Flame of Kelds felt fine. Like all the cards just felt fine, but we're just feel like we're playing a little bit of underpowered cards for what we're trying to do in Modern. So we'll get into the playing here. First match is against Hardened Scales Affinity. The list we were playing was the one that actually 5-0'd. So obviously people have had success with this deck. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I'm not a huge fan. Had to mulligan a 0-lander. This hand's okay. 1-lander. Hope to scry land to the top here. We do. Lead on Swift Spear here. Get in for 1. Opponent plays an animation module, so we have nothing to gut shot here. We just play out Lavamancer. Get in for 1 again. Opponent plays. Gets to start getting some chump blockers. See, like even these random X ones can really kind of slow down what your deck's trying to do. Good Faithless Looting here. So Fiery Temper maybe should go after one of the creatures, but the Welding Jar makes that awkward, so I just go after the face. Opponent just chump blocks with their Servo token. This is where things get a little bit difficult for us. Go ahead and play out the Bomat Courier. Attack here, figuring things would go well, and they end up going extremely poorly here. Opponent sacks, we bolt their face in response. The animation module can't do anything with that. They sack the Ravager. We gut shot them, force them to continue to sack things. Go after the Ravager here. They end up sacking the Arcbound Worker, getting 2 counters in the end, so we end up losing our Swift Spear. We keep the Bomat Courier around, but that's not too relevant. Our opponent obviously knows their deck very well. Turns around, plays a Walking Ballista, and this just kind of like... This kind of starts to highlight the issue I have with the deck in terms of... just, if you can shut down the creatures, it's so much... Deck is so much worse. Like Fiery Temper, or I guess we flashback that, and then we just actually die on turn 5, because they add this and then pump it. So, kind of rough. Like I said, this deck is a lot more vulnerable to your opponent being able to interact with your creatures. So this deck is like somewhere trapped between 8-whack and traditional burn without the reach of burn and without the like whack portion of 8-whack. So you feel like you have a lot of underpowered 1-drops pretty much. Like this style of deck was fine in Standard, but I don't know that it's consistently powerful enough in Modern. Opponent goes that. Get in for 2 here. Play a Soulscar Mage. This is one of our best starts, right? Got a bunch of creatures. Got a burn spell, punch through some damage. Yeah. I mean, this is where the deck feels good. Like, you're firing off burn spells, your creatures are dealing 2 damage. Drop our opponent to 8. The opponent's stuck on mana. Play Hardened Scales. Opponent, we attack. Our opponent double blocks. We fire off a bolt. looking pretty good here. And then our opponent Nature's claims one of their dudes, so they get to eat our Soulscar Mage. We put them to 5. Play our last card. Opponent. Maybe I should have attacked there, but opponent ends up having a Walking Ballista here. Play out our Flame of Keld. Go ahead and go to attacks. I guess to eat one of their creatures. Put them to 1, so theoretically we're in good shape here. And our opponent, this play is just insane. So, opponent attacks, gets in some damage here. Gets to shoot their own Arcbound Worker, put a whole bunch of counters on their thing. So their guy went from 2 counters to 5 counters. How did that work exactly? So they had 2 counters, shot their worker. The worker had 3 counters on it, 4 transferred over, that's why. Alright. And they get to gain a bunch of life, gun down our board here. Gain more life in the process. Play out the Chain Whirler, play out the Flame of Keld, hoping we can draw enough burn spells to do something here. Opponent just continues to pump up the jam here. We draw a mountain. Fiery Temper is the only thing. So I made a missequencing here. I probably should have Fiery Tempered this first. Might have given us a chance to get back into this game, sorta, kinda. When it gains a bunch of life. And it turns out they had another Walking Ballista, so we wouldn't have even been able to get back into the game, so. Like I said, our opponent, the strategy is not usually a fantastic matchup for traditional burn anyway, but just the fact that our opponent was able to answer our X1s so well was such a such an enormous drawback. So on to match number 2. Obviously a pretty easy keep. I mean, we don't have any burn spells. But if we flood out, this Faithless Looting can kind of fix our draw. We want early creatures with this deck to pressure our opponent. So, pretty easy keep overall. Opponent leads on Mountain. We go to play Bomat Courier. They bolt it. Opponent shocks in. We're kind of scared of like a Lightning Helix here, so I just deploy the 2 Soulscar Mages instead of the Bomat Courier. Helix is one of our dudes. We're able to Fiery Temper them. So we're kind of doing our thing, but the Jeskai lists is just like opponent Cryptic Commands. Just to prevent taking some damage here. Play out Lavamancer. They play out Teferi. Go to combat. Here comes Snapcaster Mage. Go ahead and kill the Snap, get in for some damage here. Like, I mean, this seems like we're in pretty good shape here, right? You know, we have Bomat Courier drawing some cards. We've got active Grim Lavamancer. Feels like we should be in pretty good shape here. Opponent casts Supreme Verdict. We pop our Bomat Courier. I'll shoot them and then pop the Bomat Courier here. Fire off the Wizard's Lightning. While it looks like we might have an opening, they have Logic Knot. So our draw off the Bomat Courier was pretty lousy. Our opponent still has this active Teferi going. The only thing we've got in the hand, obviously, at this point is a Bolt. I'm going to play Snapcaster Mage. Goes to Flashback Lightning Helix. Try to Bolt in response. They unfortunately have Logic Knot here. And that's just pretty much the game. It's possible we could come back from this point, but they have a Teferi on 9, drawing a bunch of cards. And this deck doesn't, like, so far we'd use two of our bolts. It's possible this was a premature concession, but opponent's drawing 2 cards a turn, has infinite mana, and we only have 10 bolts or so we're drawing to, and we need at least 2 of them to kill them, and they need to both resolve. So maybe at this point I was a little on tilt and just quit before I should have, but did feel like we were getting pretty far behind and our opponent was going to be able to start clocking us. Maybe we had enough time here, but this Teferi could always ultimate and then start chucking away at our lands, so a lot of stuff going on here. I just felt it was right to concede. Opponent was F4, they had cast 2 Lightning Helixes. Once again, this kind of illustrates why I don't like this deck versus traditional burn. They answer your creatures, the game's pretty much over. I mean, you have some reach with Bolt, Lightning Bolt, and Wizard's Lightning, but not as much reach as regular burn has. Alright, game number 2. Talk about sideboarding a little bit. So I sideboarded out the gut shots, or at least 2 of the gut shots, and brought in the 2 Smuggler's Copter, figuring we need a more resilient threat against the Wraths. Also be able to filter through if we flood out. This doesn't feel like a Young Pyromancer matchup, doesn't feel like a Chain Whirler matchup. Not a Spite of Mogus matchup, not really a Damping Sphere matchup. Could argue for Relic of Progenitus, but I don't think that's the kind of game we're playing this game. This hand's perfectly fine. I mean, all our hands have been good. Like, our opening hands have been good. It's just been, like, it feels like we run out of gas and our opponent answers our creatures too quickly. I mean, if you look at our 4 creatures here, only one of them has haste, and that's the Bomat Courier. The Soulscar Mages don't have haste. The Lava Runner doesn't have haste until we cast these 2 bolts. So, I mean, Goblin Guide in situations like this, is getting in for 2 damage. So I pitched a land and a Soulscar Mage here. It's possible I should have pitched a Bolt just to get the G2 Lava Runner in for an extra damage this turn. And the other mistake I made here was deploying the Lava Runner this turn. I probably should have just deployed the Soulscar Mage. So there were some small misplays on my part here. It's going to Path to Exile our Bomat Courier. Bolt their face, sack the Bomat, draw 2 mountains. Play out our Lava Runner here, get in for some damage. Electrolyzes one of them, they go to 7. Flashback Faithless Looting. Plays a Search for Escanta. We play out our guy, we go ahead and Lightning Bolt them. They just start to stabilize here. And once again, maybe I concede prematurely, but they're at 7 life. They have an active Search for Escanta. And we've flooded out a little bit. I don't know what it is about these mono red decks in Modern. They seem to flood, for a deck with 18 lands, they almost seem to flood out more than the 20 land fetch land mana base. I'm not sure why it feels that way, but it just feels like these 18 land, no fetch land decks seem to flood out more. I don't know. Maybe once again, maybe I'm just on tilt here, but it just feels like these decks flood out more. Alright, on to match 3, the mirror match. A little bit of interesting back and forth here, but this was kind of like the final draw of like, yeah, I'm not finishing up this league. I don't like playing matchups in which I don't like losing in Magic in general, which, you know, maybe I'm too competitive sometimes. But I really don't like decks where I'm losing and it doesn't feel like I'm particularly close to um, winning necessarily. I mean, this hand's fine. Opponent leads on Swift Spear. We lead on Swift Spear, start clocking in for some damage. Opponent goes Bowmat Courier, they get in for some damage here. So I go Soulscar Mage into Bolt the Bowmat Courier. Reason I go for Courier is I know they're stuck on lands right now, so I'm more interested in restricting their ability to draw out of that. And they go kind of nuts here. Play a Soulscar Mage. Bolt their Soulscar Mage. Faithless Looting, forcing some damage here. Get rid of the creatures, because I think the Flame of Keld gives us the best chance to win the game long term. Crank in for 6 here. Opponent gets to go a little nuts. Like, this is what I mean, like, when the creatures stick in play, they can deal huge chunks of damage. But in situations where your opponent's, like, answering the creatures, it gets really, really awkward. And then that's just game, even without the Flame of Keld here. So this game illustrates the matchup, like the games where you get to stick your creatures in play, and they're quite insane. Like, being able for every spell you're casting, if you have like 2 or 3 prowess dudes here, your bolts and stuff are effectively dealing like 6 damage a piece. That's pretty insane. But most of your guys not having haste is it's just an enormous problem. Like, I don't know, like, how to remedy that necessarily. Sorry. Alright, on to game 2. Sideboarding with this deck. Once again, didn't feel like we had a huge number of tools in the sideboard. I brought in the 2 Smuggler's Copter, boarded out one of the gut shots and one of the insult to injury. Basically, sorry, I didn't mean to fast forward through it, but basically our opponent played turn 1 Bowmat Courier, we gut shotted them. We play out our Soulscar Mage here. Maybe I should have gone with Bowmat Courier to get in the point of damage, but Faithless Looting just kill their dude here. This deck has a lot of cute synergies, it's just like our opponent now has 2 Swift Spears. Wizard's Lightning to kill one of them. Once again, trying to deny them cards because their deck needs a good bit of, both of our decks needs a good bit of resources to kill our opponent. Bowmat Courier here. Go ahead and Fiery Flashback Looting, Fiery Temper something here. Have the Bolt. Flame of Keld, pretty reasonable. Bolt our opponent's creature. We're at a low life total. If they draw well, then we're probably dead here, but if they don't, then they pitch 2 mountains. Go ahead and attack with our Bowmat Courier. We have a boatload of cards, and then we just die to a flurry of burn spells here. You know, when your Lightning Bolt's dealing 5 damage and your Gut Shot's dealing 3 damage, that's usually pretty good. So on to game number 3. Once again, we got to see what both the positives and the negatives of the deck are. Sand's pretty reasonable. You know, we've got the triple creature plus Smuggler's Copter and a Pseudo Lightning Bolt in our hand. We have no. It's currently cost 3, which really sucks. Get in with the Bomat Courier because it doesn't really deal additional damage here. Opponent has a Soulscar Mage. Once again, a random creature able to shut down our Bomat Couriers. Soulscar Mage, fine. Opponent gets in for some damage here. We just run out a bunch of our creatures. Our opponent's obviously representing Lightning Bolt here, so attack with Smuggler's Copter. They lightning it after they let us loot, which is a little bit of a misstep. I pitched the second Smuggler's Copter because I think being able to kill all their creatures is worth more value here. Swift Spear. They get to get in for a bunch of damage here, which really sucks. Like, these are the draws the deck looks insane. And some of my draws, admittedly, have been pretty mopey. Maybe I'm not keeping the right hands, or go ahead and kill 2 of their guys here. We get to get in for a bunch of damage, draw a bunch of cards. Comes Bomat Courier. Opponent gets to put us to 1 here. We draw Fiery Temper. Here I'm sequencing this to make them block, because we're going to want to sack one of these anyway, so if they go to block here, that allows me to discard Fiery Temper for value, kill one of their guys. Go ahead and bolt their other guy, play out this Lava Runner as a blocker, and then they draw a Burn Spell to kill us. So, how do I discuss this? This deck has a lot of very interesting things going on with it. Like, I think the core of the deck is... fine. Like, the Fiery Temper, Wizard's Lightning, Lightning Bolt core of the deck. I think the cards that I kind of question the point of are... Trying to think how I can be constructive and how I would build the deck if I was going for a similar strategy. Maybe it's necessary to keep the Lavamancers in the deck. So I feel like these 12 cards are just too cute. Insult to Injury definitely is too cute. These Gut Shots, like, I could see them being a reasonable sideboard card, and I understand why you're playing them to turn on your Lava Runners and your Swift Spears and your Soulscar Mages. But Faithless Looting and Fiery Temper are just too cute. I think I'd replace these 12 spells with, like, Searing Blazes or Searing Bloods, like 4 of Searing Blaze, Searing Blood. I'm trying to think what other cards would be reasonable in these slots. Like 4 Searing Blaze. Do quantity 0. Like 4 Searing Blazes. Let's get these cards out of here. They're kind of garbage. Other cards have I run in mono red before? some number of skull cracks, and then what other bolt effects are available in these color in mono red? Because like you really want to be able to be able to really leverage your creatures. You want your effects to be able to kill your opponent's creatures. Searing Blaze certainly helps. Wizard's Lightning obviously fine as long as you're keeping your wizard count pretty high. Skullcrack does what it does. Guess your other options are like Shard Volley, Lightning Strike, Magma Jet. I mean, you're starting to get into some really poor cards here. So, really have to think about it. But I do think if you're going to try to leverage the creature strategy, you need better cards to be able to leverage, like your Searing Blazes, your Searing Bloods. Those kind of effects are a lot more effective at punching through opponents' creatures, and they become effectively 2-for-1s against like things like Snapcaster Mage, the mirror match that we were playing against that Arcbound Ravager deck. You know, they just become effective 2-for-1s. Like, I think this deck blows its load too quickly, trying to answer opponents' creatures. And unless you have like 2 or 3 prowess effects or 2 or 3 creatures in play, you're really not leveraging turning your burn spells into removal spells enough. So I'd have to think about what the last like couple of slots would be. Maybe it would be like 2 Searing Blood and 2 Shard Volley, though I personally hate the card Shard Volley. I personally hate this card, but I understand sometimes it needs play. And then maybe Searing Blood here. Card can certainly be underpowered in certain matchups, doesn't necessarily go to the face, so maybe these two are ambitious here, or maybe you should just play something like Flames of the Blood Hand or Exquisitive Firecraft. I mean, obviously, it's just kind of a rough estimate of how I might rebuild the deck, and the sideboard, that's a whole nother ball game. These Young Pyromancers don't do anything. Relics and Dampening Spheres are okay. I'm not a huge fan of Dampening Sphere in the sideboard, even of a mono red deck. Chain Whirler's okay. Spite, I don't know. I honestly think I'd rather play, I think just because we're playing Soulscar Mage would be fine. I honestly think if I'm playing Spite, I'd rather play, Flame Slash. Just as a mana efficient way to get things out of my way. Last 2 Searing Bloods. And then probably to either Exquisitive Firecraft or 2 Flames of the Blood Hand in this configuration. The Chain Whirlers I could see being fine in like certain spots, like against Young Pyromancer tokens, against Elves without a Lord, or there are some other spots where I could see Chain Whirler being fine. The 2 Smuggler's Copters seemed alright. Relic of Progenitus is an interesting card. I don't think it's necessarily a bad hedge, especially being in just mono red. But I think if I were to rebuild the deck, this is the kind of list I would run. I'm just not a huge fan of the Faithless Looting Fiery Temper nonsense. I don't like not being able to cast my bolts for 1 or 2 mana. Oh, Rift Bolt. I'm an idiot here. I don't even need to run these garbage cards. Like, yeah, if I'm gonna play bold effects, and I'm gonna have to cast 3 mana for them quite a bit of the time, or have to use some type of activated ability, I just want to run Rift Bolt. So yeah, I think this is how I would rebuild the deck. I think like the deck has some promise. Like Bomat Courier and Flame of Kill have to have some place in Modern. I don't know if they're a good place in Modern, but I think they have to have some place in Modern. And I honestly think this is like the kind of thing you want. You just want to be able to clear the way for your creatures, and at the same time get some value from your cards overall. Like Smuggler's Copter allows you a traditional, like more reach in the deck, allows you to have some flying. So I think if I were to approach the deck, this is how I would approach it. Because like these are basically 1 mana spells a large number of the time, and these cards all serve some purpose. Blaze basically allows you to grab a 2-for-1 against a lot of creature decks. Flame of Keld, I think if you're getting more burn spells in your deck, like right now we're running 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 burn spells, as opposed to the other list was running 13, 14, not, well, at least if you want to count Gutshot. I just don't think Gutshot's good enough in this format right now. Like, you could even run it in your sideboard as a couple of in some of these slots if you want to, like, dome a Mana Dork or something, or, you know, have a way to attack Infect or something, but I think it's just too narrow of a card right now. But, yeah, I think that's going to be it for my replay video and how I would rebuild the deck. Just my personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Sound off in the comments if you have any experience with the deck, if I was misplaying with the deck. You know, I'm sure there are people out there that have played the deck and had quite a bit of success with it, and that's fine. I'm just saying I personally don't like the deck and how it's played in Modern, or its current place in Modern, and how it was built initially. And I think this build might be like something we'll try again in the future. So this has been Dust for Dust on Gaming with a replay of 12 Bolt, and trying to work on rebuilding it a little bit to make it a little bit more my style of deck. So this has been Dust for Dust on Gaming. Thanks for tuning in.